Right now, the coach, Jimmy Lynam from NBC Sports Philadelphia. Sixers pre- and post-game live, which is, of course, still local even throughout these national broadcasts. You can check them out an hour before the game and right after the game is over to break down all the action. And to break it down with us now is Jimmy Lynam, the, of course, former head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, and he joins us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Coach, as obviously – if you're coaching that team last night and you're sitting on that plane and that's what happened, I would imagine that you are not too thrilled on your flight home.
No, you're correct by you, Mike. I'll quote Doc Rivers, they missed the golden opportunity, to secure what would have been probably a really secure 3-1 lead in this series by not being able to take advantage of an early 18-point lead.
If that's the case, and you said you lost a golden opportunity, what concerns you as a coach watching that tape today? If you look back at that thing and said, this happened, that happened, we might this one might be a fight. What stood out in that game last night as to why this series is now 2-2?
Well, that's easy, Mike. What stood out last night and what is the issue going forward are one and the same, and it's the condition of Joel Embiid. There was no doubt in my mind, I won't say right at the outset of the second half, but somewhere, during the latter part, 6 minutes to go, 7 minutes to go, it became very evident to me that he was compromised in some way. It may have said, as I said last night post-game, it may have said Embiid on the jersey, but that was not Joel Embiid that you were watching shoot 0 for 12 in the second half. So that's the concern.
Now, Doc did say a little while ago that we wouldn't put Joel out there if he couldn't play. So obviously they don't think that he is so injured that he cannot play, but there was obvious that it was something with him. So do you think that Tobias Harris or Ben Simmons, that's the time for one of those two guys? If you're, looking at this and saying, all right, Joel's not right, I got to turn to one of my other guys, or do you keep riding the guy who got you there?
No, the former. And let's make a distinction here. Joel Embiid had 21 rebounds in this game. The Atlanta Hawks shot 36% for the game, still were miraculously able to win. Joel Embiid is more than capable of rebounding and defending. What he's not capable of doing is being the real Joe at the offensive end of the court. So what you have to do is dial him back a little bit, not take him out of the game. No, he can be more than valuable, doing the two things that I say he does at a world-class level, rebound and defend. But unfortunately, he doesn't, for whatever reason, the injury is, at least last night in the second half, it was limiting his ability to gather strength. When the nature of Joe's game, they're not as good as his footwork is. When he decides to come at you and challenge you, it's all power, and he was not able, what I call, to load up with his lower body because of the knee.
Right, and I guess if anybody knows anything about jump shooting, which he relied on a lot last night, a lot of his stuff in the second half was outside of the painted area. If your legs aren't there, that shot comes up short, and we saw a lot of that last night.
Yeah, even that, Mike, if you want to know the truth, on one, I'm not going to say on all, but on one, yes, he shot a jump shot, but you ready? His right leg barely thrust him off the ground.
Yep.
It wasn't a one-footer, both feet on the floor, but I saw, my eye showed me, he literally went off of 1 foot to shoot that jumper, and it barely hit the front rim.
Yep, he certainly didn't look like himself shooting the ball last night. I want to, just a couple of moments ago, Doc is, speaking, and he was asked about Ben Simmons and the lack of aggression from him, and he said, I disagree. I don't need him to shoot more, but what I need him to do is do a better job of getting us into our offense. But I want to ask you, Coach, I said yesterday before the game, people thought that Green being out was not that big of a deal. And I said the floor spacing is going to be a problem because they have to attribute him in that corner. Whether he's hitting them or not, he still has to be accounted for. And I think that not having Green kind of made that offense look a little clunky last night.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I'm not going to, strongly disagree, but the absence of Danny Green was not the problem in the second half. The problem in the second half was Joel Embiid was not Joel Embiid.
Sure.
They're accustomed to getting a lot of points from him, 15 or more in a half, and they're accustomed to the other team having to react to that, start double-teaming him, whereby the Seth Currys of the world start getting open looks. Curry got very few open looks last night. What he created, he really had to create on his own.
Yeah.
So that really was the issue. So going forward, Doc and his staff, they're going to you put this up in relation to Ben. You're going to need Ben to do more. And I would beg to disagree with Doc in this sense. If you put up Ben's first half numbers versus Ben's second half numbers, the second half pales in comparison. You can't have that.
Yeah.
He had nowhere near as many rebounds, nowhere near as many assists, and he only took one shot. So I'm not. I understand what Doc is saying with the scoring of the points, and I'm with him there. But you have to have Ben Simmons involved if, in fact, you're not. Because the way this team has played all year long, like we've spoken about this, they put the ball in Joel Embiid's hands an inordinate amount of times. Of course they do, because the other team is then they're in a quandary. What do? We don't have anybody to guard him. And if we start like double teaming him, we're letting other guys loose. Precisely. That's why the Sixers do it. Well, now maybe you don't have that option going forward.
Now,
therefore,
Doc
said come to the fore.
Doc said that he would agree that Ben needed to be more aggressive if that means pushing the pace and facilitating. But I almost thought the Hawks kind of took like one of the things I think people don't appreciate about Simmons because he doesn't score as much as you want is that he controls the pace and the tempo. The Sixers always seem, when they're doing well, they're playing at the pace and style that they want, and that frustrates other teams. I thought Young was brilliant last night at getting them out, and they controlled the pace and the style in the second half.
Yes, I would agree. And to be honest, I understand what Doc is saying, but Doc is not in full control of that. Like if I were playing the Sixers, one of my two main things, if the Sixers were at full strength, would be to control Ben Simmons in the open court. The Sixers have nothing to say about that. That's on me, and let's say in this case, the Atlanta Hawks. So give Atlanta credit. They did a good job in transition defense in putting the Sixers in a lot of half-court play. So to me, now that's like, let's say, this is now page 2. Okay, so we don't get what we would like to get. Yeah, terrific. A lot of nights you don't in terms of open court play. So now you have to involve Ben. If Joe's going to be somewhat, as I'll use my word, compromised, involve Ben more in the half court, a la what you did in game number 2. I mean, Ben, come on. Ben was tremendous in game number 2 when they kind of went to him in that little sweet spot. And the second thing I want to tell you, I love when they pick and roll Ben Simmons. What do you want Ben to do when he's picking and rolling? Have the ball or set the pick? You ready? Flip the coin. I could care less. Put him in pick and roll. He's dynamite in either one of those roles. So sweet spot, post him, make him pick and roll, and Ben Simmons will not be invisible like he was the second half, because that's what he was.
Jimmy Lynam's with us, NBC Sports Philadelphia. Wednesday night, they'll have pre- and post-game live. Defensively, Trae Young was I likened him to an option quarterback at Navy. He knew when to pitch. He knew when to hold it and tuck it. He read the defensive end perfectly last night. Even though he didn't shoot it well, 18 assists, I thought he played brilliantly. But they pick and rolled the Sixers to death last night.
Well, obviously that's what Trae Young does. He's a terrific pick and roll player. But I would have to say, and I agree with your analysis. He was phenomenal. 18 assists for 2 turnovers. I mean, come on, that's unheard of. But I have to say, the Sixers overall, if I were the Sixers, I'm pretty satisfied with my defense. Atlanta shot 36%. Trae Young was 8 for 26. Mm-hmm. That's below one-third, 33%. The fact of the matter is, Atlanta is going to win very few games with those offensive numbers. So the Sixer defense, they answered the bell. The problem was in the second half, the Sixer offense was so bad. They scored 62 points in the first half and 38 in the second. Come on.
Well, let me ask you this then, because I had said before, they made 23s in game 1. They need 23s. Well, They won a game last night where you just mentioned they didn't shoot all that well. I would imagine there's another game left in them where they're going to start connecting on a higher clip. Are you concerned as a coach that they got another night where the shots are going to start falling for them?
Well, yeah, sure, it's a concern, but the fact of the matter is, if you play adequate defense, what it means is they don't get as many open looks. That's on you. That's on the Sixers defense. If a team usually, and not that there can't be an outlier, but usually if a team is going to make in the vicinity, let's use your number, of 23s, then we're not doing what we have to do defensively. Mm-hmm. That's usually a part of the equation. Now, but I will give you that in this particular instance, meaning this 76er team versus this Atlanta Hawk team, you've got to double this little guy a lot. You have to. Otherwise, you're going to risk having him have a game like he had in the first half of game one, where he had 25 at the half with like 7 or 8 assists, and they got a 26-point lead. I mean, this kid is that good. He's capable of that. So the Sixers made a terrific adjustment. They're now trapping him a lot more. But if you're going to trap, you're going to give up some open threes, yes. And hopefully not to the level of making 20.
Do you stick with Korkmaz? I thought he was fine offensively, but I feel like if you're coaching, Jimmy Lynam's the coach, and Korkmaz is out there, aren't I scripting a couple plays right off the bat and going right at him? I mean, at least if he comes off the bench, that's in the flow of the game. But you stick him out there to start the game, it's like, all right, we're going to run some pick and roll right at that guy.
Yeah, I mean, the old adage, that's why he's a bench guy, meaning he doesn't play, the minutes that a starter does, for who knows what reason. I mean, it would, I think, be evident that he's not a high-level defender. But, other teams will to try to take advantage of that without question. And, Korkmaz, if he's going to really be a starter, you'd hope that he can get himself going offensively. But I have to point out that if Joel Embiid is not Joe, he went 0 for 12 the second half. Well, you think Atlanta's thinking about was an assistant coach, nudging Nate McMillan, say, I think we better double this guy. Why? Why are you going to double? Of course you're not going to double him. The guy hasn't had a bucket in 10 minutes. So if you're not doubling Joel Embiid, the Korkmaz and Seth Currys of the world are not getting open threes as a result of the other team double teaming.
Yep, and then, of course, you look at what Korkmaz gave you on offense. He hits a couple of threes there. You start him. I guess they just figure it's better to have him to help space the floor with the starting unit than Matisse Thybulle. Is that the mindset there?
Yeah, and I'm comfortable either way. I would defer to the coaches with that. Whatever they think they need most at the top of the game. I think probably what you just said was in the forefront of their minds. And then you have a fresh Thybulle coming in to kind of harass Trae Young if you want to take Ben off of him. But let me just add, on behalf of Korkmaz, Korkmaz made the biggest shot of this game for the 76ers. He made a late three that put the Sixers up 4. And if the Sixers had gotten a defensive rebound, they would have had a 4-point lead in the ball heading the other way. When Collins made his 3, that was off an offensive rebound, second shooting opportunity. So let's take our hat off to Korkmaz. That was a big-time 3 he knocked down late game.
Oh, yeah, there's no question about it. Offensively, I mean, he hits a couple threes. He did what he asked you to do. You feel, Coach, the foul shooting of Simmons has entered his mind so much that in the second half of games he does not want to get there?
That's a good one, Mike. I'm not a mind reader. I would not discount it as a possibility. And if, in fact, that is the case, even be it maybe subtle, then Ben has to overcome that. And the coaches have to help him overcome that. Go to the line. If you're not making them, really, it's like water off the duck's backside, dude. You got to be Ben Simmons out there. And, yes, we would like you to at least be able to make half your foul shots, and I would approach it just that way with him. I'd hit him straight on. We need you, dude, to be Ben Simmons and literally independent of your free throw percentage. I mean that. And I'd even tell him, Ben, I got news for you, dude. I'm not trying to play like a fairy tale here. Your foul shooting, might it cost us a game, some night, real late? It might, okay? Mm-hmm. That's not the issue. That's not the issue. We need you to be Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I know that he was 1 for 5 last night. They lost the game by 3. Yep. You know, you add them up. And that's happened in this series. I just had somebody text in and said every single game they've lost, if he makes his free throws, I mean, they win those games. He was 3 for 10, 4 for 12, 1 for 5. And in all those games, that's pretty much, if he's 60 to 65%, they wouldn't have lost a game in these playoffs yet. You wonder how much that's creeping into his mind. And obviously last night with Joel not there. But that being said, Tobias Harris is the number 2 scorer. If you see Embiid's not there, is this the night where you say, Tobias, I know you got 20 and you were efficient, 8 of 15, good night. I need you to get me 28 to 30.
Yeah, sure. Except understand that over the long run, the reason Tobias had the season he had is in big part because he's third wheel behind Embiid and Simmons. Tobias doesn't play in a vacuum. So many of the opportunities that Tobias gets over the course of games is because Joe's doing his thing. And the defense has to start gang tackling Embiid. I mean, that's what the pieces of this team, the pieces fit very, very nicely. Like Curry, what a tremendous pickup. Yeah, especially because he's playing with Embiid and Simmons.
Right.
So I hear you, but it's not quite as simplistic as you stated it.
And I think with the underlining, you know, when we have this conversation, you break it all down, this team is truly the sum of the parts. You've got this special player in Joel, and you've got the 2 pieces that shoot with Green and Curry, and Simmons puts it all together, and Harris gets his room. But when those 5, when they're not working in concert together, it looks a little clunky. But when they're working together, it works very well.
No, you're right on, but I would only simply add, Mike, that's the case with most good teams in team sports.
Yeah.
You know, that when they're at their best, you know, they're functioning, you know, as a unit. My phrase is I actually do it with my fingers and interlock my 2 hands. The pieces fit. That's what being good's about.
Yeah. I know Doc just recently said he didn't anticipate any more issues from Joel Embiid. They don't think this is going to linger or anything, so I'm assuming he's going to play. They're going to need every bit of him, as we saw, because Charles Barkley said the other night that he's irrelevant in this series. He scored 40 and they lost, or 39 and they lost. I can't imagine that they watched that game last night and see that Joel Embiid's irrelevant in this series.
No, that's you know, a little out of bounds for me from my friend Sir Charles. You know, he obviously loves to stir the pot. And each of these games are different. They're like fingerprints, I say, Mike. You know, every game has its own identity. And hopefully Doc is on target, that Joe will be able to, you know, be more Joe-like in terms of his physical well-being as we move forward.
All right, the coach, Jimmy Lynam, and the crew, tomorrow night, they will have you with Amy, Mark, and Coach Jimmy Lynam 1 hour before that game time tomorrow night on NBC Sports Philadelphia. And then as soon as it's over, you can flip back over and get all the post-game reaction from the local crew. And we always appreciate having you, Coach, here on the Sports Bash. Thank you so much.
My pleasure as always, Mike. Thank you.
All right, we'll have Coach back again hopefully next week here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app.